we travel to the forgotten corners of the medieval world, not into castles or battlefields, not into grand halls or royal tombs, but into silence and distance, into the places where the sick were sent and rarely seen again. You will walk alongside men and women who once lived outside the gates, not for crime, but for illness. You will hear the bell they carried to warn others. You will feel the scratch of rough wool against ruined skin. You will learn what it meant to be called unclean, when the body still remembered how to feel warmth. But we will not stop there. We will follow a monk across treacherous hills, carrying stolen bones he called holy. We will examine a cloth that may have wrapped a god, or a merchant's lie, and we will finish our journey at a monastery table, where abbots dined in silver and walked with kings. Imagine you wake up and your fingers no longer feel the morning air. Your face has changed. Your skin is rougher. Your family avoids your gaze. And by week's end, you are led to the edge of the town. They say you are cursed, touched, marked, and now you belong to the leper house. In the Middle Ages, leprosy was not fully understood. It was not even one single disease. The term could mean a dozen skin conditions, from eczema to syphilis to true Hansen's disease. But diagnosis didn't matter. Once marked, you were other. You were given a robe, often grey or brown, a hood, thick fabric, and a bell, a small one, tied to your belt or held in hand. You rang it to warn others as you approached, not because you were dangerous, but because they believed you were a walking sin. Many were taken to leprosaria isolated hospitals, sometimes built by sometimes on barren roadsides, sometimes near cemeteries where the future felt closer. These weren't prisons, but they weren't homes. You slept on straw. You ate what was sent. You saw the same faces day after day, slowly changing as illness took more. The pain was real, the sores, the numbness, the infection. But worse was the silence. Friends no longer visited. Your name was whispered, if at all. You became a ghost who still breathed. Physicians came rarely. When they did, they might carry burning herbs, draw blood, or offer wine infused with silver. Nothing helped. Your healing, they said, must come from God. So you prayed every night. Some healed, many didn't. All were blamed. Occasionally, you were allowed to leave to beg for alms. You walked slowly, bell in hand, head bowed. Some offered coins, others crossed themselves and backed away. Children stared. You felt the warmth of the sun, but not the warmth of any hand. And yet, in these communities, there was life. You sang psalms together. You made your own bread. You remembered the names of those who passed. You watched the stars and remembered the taste of your mother's stew. You shared stories no one else would hear. And when your time came, you were not buried in the village, but near the house, among your own, a plain grave. No stone, but not forgotten. Not by those who shared your silence. The moon is high over a narrow trail in the Pyrenees. The path winds through rock and mist. The sound of hooves echoes softly. And atop the saddle, a monk rides slowly, carefully, carrying something wrapped in cloth and cedar oil. He carries bones, not his own, not a pilgrim's, but those of a long-dead saint. Or so he hopes others believe. This is the world of relic smuggling, where faith meets fraud, and bones by miracles. In medieval Europe, holy relics were big business. A fragment of the true cross, a finger of a martyr, a piece of a saint's skull. Churches claimed them. Pilgrims sought them. Kings paid fortunes for a chance to own the sacred. And where there is demand, there is supply, even if it must be stolen. The story of the relic thief of Santiago is not found in official texts, but in fragments, in monastic records, in whispered legends. They say he was once a simple Benedictine, a quiet man, fluent in Latin, trusted with the archives, but he grew restless, tired of dust, tired of rules, and above all, he saw an opportunity. In the Cathedral of Compostela, bones were said to rest, those of St. James, the Apostle. Pilgrims walked hundreds of miles to pray before the relics. They left coins, vows, jewelry, and the church grew rich. The monk understood this, and so, in the dark of a winter morning, he disappeared, taking with him a package wrapped in linen, sealed with wax. It was said to be a rib of the saint, or a piece of femur. Accounts vary. He rode south, then east, avoided the major towns. In the small villages, he offered the relic for viewing, for a fee. Crowds gathered. Some touched it and claimed to be healed. One man said his fever broke, another that his nightmares ceased. Word spread. The monk changed names, changed clothes. He became a wandering holy man, claiming visions, and everywhere he went, he left a trail of both awe and suspicion. Eventually, he reached a small monastery and the abbot welcomed him. The relic was placed on the altar, a new shrine was built, pilgrims came, the monk was given a cell, a stipend, and peace. But peace never lasts. A year later, letters arrived from Rome, accusations, demands, questions about authenticity, and slowly the story fell apart. Some say he confessed, others that he fled. Still, others claim he was made a prior in exchange for silence. The relic remained. Pilgrims kept coming. No one truly knew whose bones they were. But belief doesn't always require truth. In the Middle Ages, bones mattered, even if they weren't real, because they carried hope. The idea that death could be tamed, that holiness had weight, that miracles could be touched. And so, somewhere in a small chapel, a gilded box remains, lined in velvet, guarded by candlelight, and inside, a bone, a name, a story that no longer but still comforts. The cathedral is dim. The air is cool, smells faintly of incense, old stone, and wax. Behind a pane of glass, in a long, climate-controlled case, lies a piece of cloth barely visible under low lighting. Its threads are yellowed, it's weaved, but if you look closely, you see a shadow, the faint outline of a man, front and back, arms crossed, eyes closed, a form so delicate, so elusive, you wonder if it's even real. This is the Shroud of Turin, one of history's most studied, most disputed, most quietly mesmerizing relics. To some, it is the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. To others, a clever medieval forgery. But to all, it is an enduring mystery, not because of what it proves, but because of what it refuses to fully reveal. The cloth itself is linen, roughly 4 meters long. A faint reddish image marks the center, a man apparently crucified. There are marks on the wrists, on the feet, on the forehead. The body appears peaceful. Still, no ink, no pigment, just shadows. The first recorded appearance of the shroud was in the 1350s, in France. A knight named Geoffroy de Charny displayed it in a church in Lyre. He claimed it was the original burial cloth from the tomb in Jerusalem. But even then, bishops were skeptical. Some called it a fraud, a painting. The Pope himself took no stance, and so it remained both sacred and suspicious. Later, it was moved to Turin, Italy, where it remains today, protected, preserved, but rarely shown. Even in times of war, it was hidden deep in vaults. It survived fires, it survived doubt, and it inspired devotion. Scientists have studied it for over a century. In 1988, radiocarbon dating was done. The results were clear. The linen dated to the 13th or 14th century, too late to be from the time of Christ. The church acknowledged the science, but didn't dismiss the faith. Others countered. Perhaps the dating was flawed, contaminated by centuries of handling, or by the fire it survived in 1532. Tests were arguments continued. No definitive answer. And then there's the image itself. No clear brushstrokes. No layered pigment. Modern imaging suggests it may have been formed by chemical oxidation of the cloth's surface. But how? No one knows. Theories range from early photographic techniques to natural decay to divine light. Each theory compelling, incomplete. The shroud became more than a relic. It became a mirror for human need to believe, to doubt, to search, to project meaning onto silence. Today, millions have seen it. Many more have simply heard of it. Pilgrims weep in its presence. Historians debate it quietly. Scientists still petition to examine it further, but the cloth remains still, unmoving, unwilling to yield. In a world that often demands certainty, the Shroud of Turin offers only softness. Like sleep, it blurs edges, invites questions, but asks for none. It rests, as it has for centuries. And perhaps that is its greatest power. The bells ring for the sky outside the cloister is turning violet. A breeze moves gently through the stone arches. Candles are being lit one by one, but not by the abbot. The abbot does not carry candles. He does not scrub floors. He does not live as the others do. His chambers are on the upper floor, his tables set apart, his robes heavier, embroidered, soft-lined. This is the world of monastic privilege, where devotion meets diplomacy, where poverty is preached, but not always practiced. In theory, a medieval abbot was a servant of God, a guide to the brothers under his care, a man of prayer, discipline, simplicity. But in practice, the abbot was more than a monk. He was a lord. In powerful abbeys like Cluny, Monte Cassino, or St. Denis, the abbot held vast lands, collected taxes, oversaw serfs, and even held courts of justice. He could raise armies, issue charters, and meet with kings as an equal. He dined in private. His food was rich fish, roasted game, wine. Where the brothers drank thin ale, the abbot's cellar held casks from Burgundy. His library was vast, not just psalms and liturgy, but Aristotle, Pliny, Cicero. His scribes illuminated manuscripts with gold leaf borders, vivid blue inks crushed from lapis lazuli imported from the East. These were not books to be read aloud in humble chapels. They were treasures, symbols of status, sometimes never opened again after being shelved. He wore a ring, sometimes two. He held a staff, silver or ivory, and when he walked through town, he was not bowed over, but bowed to. Yet, his power had a price. He managed disputes between nobles, between parishes, between restless monks. He wrote letters to the Pope. He enforced Rome's decrees. He defended the abbey's interests against secular lords who wanted land, tithes, rights. He was both a priest and a politician. In the cloister garden, his roses were always better tended, his windows larger, his hearth warmer. And yet, at night, even the abbot kneeled to pray. His Latin was clearer, his robes finer, but his fears perhaps the same. About death, about judgment, about legacy. And not all abbots were virtuous. Some kept mistresses, others skimmed wealth. A few were installed by kings and never took vows. But even the strictest abbots, the reformers, enjoyed comforts unknown to the brothers they led. A soft mattress, a private bath, time to read, time to write, time, above all, to shape the world in quiet ways. Because abbots helped chart maps, preserved histories, advised on treaties, commissioned composers and artists. The Gregorian chants we hear today, many passed through an abbot's hand. And so, as the fire crackles in his stone hearth, and a servant pours wine into a goblet trimmed in pewter, the abbot leans back in his chair and listens. Outside, the brothers chant. Inside, the world waits for his next word. Tonight, you walked both shadow and gold. You stood at the edge of the village, hearing the soft ring of a leper's bell. You followed a monk carrying stolen bones through forests thick with fog. You knelt before a cloth that may have wrapped a god or a lie, and you stood in the warmth of a private chamber where faith wears velvet and silence holds power. The Middle Ages were not just crusades and castles. They were places of loneliness, quiet resistance, gentle fraud, and dignified excess, where sacredness lived beside deception and poverty beside privilege.